We're back again. Welcome to episode 2 of season 2 of the Limerick's Life podcast. I'm Sharon Slater and I know about history.
I'm Peter and I know a little bit about history. So what are you going to tell me about today?
We're going to get a bit gruesome with this one. When you think of women being burnt at the stake, I suppose historical figures like Joan of Arc or the women of the Salem witch trials often come to mind. By the way, the women of the Salem witch trials weren't burnt but hanged.
Oh, really? Well, that's a plot twist.
An early one in. Okay, I need to backtrack because today's episode tells the story of the chilling account of the last recorded instance of a woman being legally burnt at the stake in Ireland.
I imagine that must have been a while ago. Burning at the stake seems very medieval to me.
Well, in historical context, it was quite recent.
Oh?
The 23rd of April, 1768 to be precise.
Oh, wow. So who was it?
Her name was Alice Moran, and she was convicted of poisoning a woman named Joan Sullivan or Buckley, depending on the source.
Was it a lethal poisoning?
Well, we'll get to that. But first, let's go sit with Alice in Limerick Jail, which was located at the time in the aptly named Jail Lane of Mary Street. The building she was in was originally the Tolsel building, built in 1449.
Ah.
This was originally the city's first town hall, and it also served as a custom house and a courthouse and a chamber of commerce. But in 1750, it was converted into a 4-story high jail, and it cost the public £1,000.
Oh, that was a lot for the time.
Oh, it absolutely was. So here Alice sat on the 30th of January, 1768, 18 years after the building had been changed.
So what was it like inside there?
Okay, so this was an 18th century prison, and you'll have seen enough renditions of them in films. So unsurprisingly, the conditions were unacceptable. The cells were dark, damp, and overcrowded. The prisoners were underfed and poorly treated. A prison reformer visited Limerick Jail 20 years after Alice was there, and he reported the appalling conditions that the prisoners were held in.
So is the jail still standing?
No, it fell into disrepair after a new jail was built in the early 19th century. The former jail was demolished in 1936, and the street name Jail Lane is the only reminder we have of it. And even then, Google likes to call it Emily Place.
Classic Google.
A shop was built in its place, and now the Labour politician Conor Sheehan has his offices there. Back to Alice. She waited in her cell for 3 months until April, when she appeared in the newly built courthouse on Bridge Street. This imposing courthouse with its large windows opened only 3 years earlier.
Hey, I went to school there.
So you can tell us about the history of that building?
The walls in the yard were tall.
So, for those who didn't go to the school, the courthouse later became a Christian Brothers school, the Gerald Griffin Memorial School, named after a journalist who became a monk that we might talk about in another episode.
Oh, I've heard that name before. That's quite the career change.
Isn't it just? Then the building became the Irish School, Gaelscoil Sarshale, your one,
That was my one.
before they moved to a permanent home on the Shelburne Road in 2016. So now, 10 years later, that building still sits vacant after it had been used for 250 years.
Wow. It's a fascinating building. I'd like to see something new go in there.
It would be great. Back in the courthouse, though, in April 1768, the details of Alice Moran's alleged crime began to surface. The prosecution painted a chilling picture of Moran's visit to the Sullivan family, again, or Buckley's, home in Brewery, County Limerick. Armed with a small paper packet containing a mysterious powder, the story went, Moran approached Joan Sullivan, claiming the substance was sugar.
So she went to court. Did she have a defense lawyer?
She would have had a defense lawyer, but they wouldn't have been that interested in her case, to be honest. This was still during the penal laws, well, just at the tail end of it. And given that she was probably a poor Catholic woman, and we have very little information about her, she would have been treated more harshly by the elite, who were ruling over everything at the time. The corrupt corporation had their hands in every pot.
The corrupt corporation?
Oh, yeah. That was a period in Limerick history when a small group of families controlled all aspects of life and taxation in Limerick. We could do an entire podcast on them.
Ooh, it sounds like there's a good story there.
Oh, there sure is. But let's get back to Alice. We know that Joan Sullivan was a married woman, and her husband was most likely a witness at the trial, although that wasn't confirmed. Anyway, Joan probably went, sugar. And remember, this was the 1760s, and sugar was rare and expensive in Ireland. As soon as she swallowed, Joan started gasping in pain. Within 2 hours of ingesting the mysterious substance, Joan succumbed to its lethal effects. Now, we don't know if Alice stayed there the entire time or if she was arrested later, and the facts are a little sketchy on this.
I wonder what poison the powder was. All I can imagine is Alice running around singing that one Prodigy song going, I got the poison.
No one had the remedy. My first thought was arsenic, but we just don't know. On a totally off-topic note, in the Victorian era, women used to eat arsenic mixed with vinegar and chalk to improve the complexions on the face and make their skin paler to show that they did not work in the fields.
Wow, people will do anything for beauty.
Oh, don't we know that? Coffee enema, anybody? As the trial progressed in the Limerick Assize, the evidence against Alice Moran was presented. Any defence she might have offered has been lost to time. We don't know her age, her home, her family situation. What we do know is the verdict was delivered. Alice Moran was found guilty of murder.
Dun, dun.
On the 23rd of April, 1768, the condemned Alice Moran was taken to Gallows Green, a notorious site for hangings just outside the protective walls of Limerick City, nestled in the Garryone area.
In Garryone? Is Gallows Green still there?
The land still exists, but there are now houses there. I'm not sure exactly which house was on top of the execution site, and I hope the people up there don't check either.
Oh, there's definitely some sort of execution site curse that we can make a horror movie out of there.
Oh, exactly. Let's leave that one well enough alone. Now, people were usually hanged at Gallows Green, given the name, but not Alice. She was sentenced to be burned.
But why was she sentenced to being burned if it was a hanging place?
Burning has a long history as a form of public capital punishment, and many societies have employed it as a punishment for and to warn against such crimes as treason, heresy, and witchcraft. It was probably under witchcraft that this cruel fate was decided. She was not a witch. She was a woman.
So how did they do it? Who was the fire starter? The twisted fire starter? Two Prodigy references in one podcast.
Who could have seen that coming? We don't have the exact details of her execution, but the last woman burnt alive in England was Catherine Hayes in 1726, so 40 years before Alice. She was executed for the murder of her husband. And there is an excerpt telling us about what happened to her, and I'm going to read this. The fuel being placed around her and lighted with a torch, she begged for the sake of Jesus to be strangled first, whereupon the executioner drew tight the halter, but the flames coming to his hand, in the space of a second he let go, when she gave 3 dreadful shrieks, but the flames taking her on all sides, she was heard no more, and the executioner throwing a piece of timber onto the fire, it broke her skull, when her brains came plentiful out, and in about an hour she was entirely reduced to ashes.
So that definitely takes the cake so far on the most intense and harrowing quote we've had in any episode so far.
That's for sure. And that's what would have happened to poor Alice. It was common in England in the 18th century for those to be burned to be strangled first, but we simply don't know if this was the case for Alice Moran.
Strangling is not great, but I would still take it over being burned to death.
Me too. The newspapers of the time, while chronicling Alice Moran's trial and subsequent execution, dedicate only a few lines to this extraordinary event. The Dublin Gazette of the 28th of April 1768 wrote, Limerick, April 25th. Saturday last, Alice Moran was executed at Gallows Green, pursuant to her sentence for poisoning Joan Sullivan. The Oxford Journal of the same month told of the execution in simpler terms. At Limerick Assize, Alice Moran was convicted of the murder of Joan Sullivan by poison, sentenced to be burnt on Saturday 23rd instant.
I wonder what more they would have said if they understood the significance of this event.
She was just not anyone important enough at the time to take up any more real estate in the newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
As newspapers moved on to other stories, the burning of Alice Moran became a historical footnote and it was forgotten. Unbeknownst to contemporaries, this chilling episode marked the end of an era. It is the last known case of someone being legally burnt to death in Ireland as a judicial punishment. The subsequent transformation of societal norms and legal practices would render such extreme forms of punishments relics of a brutal past.
So how common was this punishment in Ireland and the world as a whole at the time?
Oh, not very. By this stage, by the middle of the 18th century, it wasn't common at all.
Mm-hmm.
The Treason by Women Act of Ireland, 1796, finally abolished the burning of women as punishment, and it was replaced with drawing.
Is drawing just a really high-stakes art exam?
Unfortunately not.
Oh.
Drawing was where the convicted was fastened to a hurdle or wooden panel and dragged by horses to the place of execution and hanged. And this was later abolished in 1870.
So Alice was the last woman to be burned in Ireland?
Yeah, we're pretty sure she was, as the last other record is of a brothel owner, Darky Kelly, who was convicted of murdering a shoemaker, John Dowling, in 1760, so 8 years before Alice. And she was burnt at the stake in Dublin on the 7th of January 1761. Now, there was also the story of poor Bridget Cleary in 1895, who was burnt by her family. But that was not mandated by the state, so it doesn't really count in this context.
So who was the last woman executed as a whole in Ireland?
That was another Limerick woman, Annie Walsh, who on the 5th of August 1925 became both the first woman executed by the new Irish Free State at the hands of the famous English executor Pierpont. This happened in Mountjoy Prison, where she also became the last woman to be executed by the Irish Free State and the Republic of Ireland.
I feel like there's a good story there we could do a whole episode on.
Oh, absolutely. We shall.
So considering how heavy this episode was, I think we should go watch something fun after this one, like Emperor's New Groove or Shrek.
It sounds good to me. Bye-bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Find out more about this and other Limerick stories at limerickslife.com and check us out on our social media. You can find Limerick's Life on buymeacoffee.com. Mine's a decaf.
And mine's a latte.